To the United States now, where the House Republican leadership standoff is stretching into a third day after 6 votes have so far failed to decide on a speaker. Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is so far being stymied by a small group of hardliners demanding a consensus or alternative candidate. The House can conduct no other business and members can't be sworn in until a speaker is chosen. Last night, veteran Republicans were still rallying around McCarthy.
And what I think you're hearing in our collective frustration is we're not getting anything specifically back. What gets us to that 218 with Kevin McCarthy so that we can move forward, because we have just as many as you saw from vote after vote after vote. It's not as though momentum is shifting. Each side's digging their trenches deeper, and I think that's a disservice to those men and women that are overseas depending on us and to the people who elected us. I'm going to vote for Kevin McCarthy as long as he's on the ballot. That is what that's what we committed to do, and I certainly share my colleague's sentiment, Representative Kelly's sentiment, that there is negotiations and then there's holding the rest of us hostage, and 20 don't get to do that to 201. I don't know.
Okay, let's cross live now to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham. Hello, Eric. I mean, it must have been a hell of a time for journalists even covering the votes. 6 rounds, no leader yet. Kevin McCarthy has now lost 6 ballots. What's happening today? Tell us.
Well, this is round 3. What looks like it's going to be another eventful day where right now it doesn't appear that Kevin McCarthy has the votes. He was asked by a number of us reporters today, did he have the votes? And he said, we'll see what happens when we get to the floor. He doesn't sound like someone who is confident that his caucus is going to back him. But while this continues to play out, Christian, what we continue to see is right now, there's no end in sight as to where this is going or where this will be headed. Kevin McCarthy is still trying to make those concessions. And Christian, over the last 24 hours, there have been a number of massive concessions that Kevin McCarthy has made to Republicans. One of those concessions is to actually now allow for just one member of the chamber, one member of his caucus, to actually be able to call for a no confidence vote of the Speaker of the House. So what that means is we went from initially there needed to be at least 50 members of the caucus to call for a no confidence vote. Kevin McCarthy moved that number down to 5. Last night, he has now moved that number down to 1. In addition to that, what he has done is he also agreed to allow for 2 members of the House Freedom Caucus. Now, the House Freedom Caucus are the members primarily who are holding the rest of this chamber hostage. He has allowed for 2 of those members to serve on the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee actually sets the agenda for how the House of Representatives will operate. He has now allowed for 2 members from the House Freedom Caucus specifically to serve on this committee. And so what we're seeing here is Kevin McCarthy is willing to now give completely everything that he has over to these 20 holdouts to ensure that he becomes the speaker. The question now going forward, Christian, is will it actually be enough to get Kevin McCarthy what he wants, and that is Speaker of the House?
Yes, and Derek, we're seeing live pictures from Congress because just like you said, voting is going to, continue, and the lobbyists start doing their works. And President Biden has said it looks bad on the world stage. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi has even expressed her own anger on Twitter. Can something really be done outside of Republican control to end this deadlock? Or who knows? The Democrats may just have the speakership back.
Well, that is certainly what we are seeing now. When you contrast what's playing out right now on the Republican side, what we have seen overwhelmingly is that Democrats are unified behind their leadership. They have nominated Hakeem Jeffries, the first African American to serve in a leadership role of this capacity, and all 212 Democrats have backed his candidacy, unlike what we are seeing on the right. Now, depending on how long this goes on, there could be a time when we do see Republicans and Democrats work together to name a speaker. Now, one name has been floated for a possible speaker candidate that is no longer actually serving in Congress. Remember, the rules state that you do not have to be a member of Congress to actually be the Speaker of the House. One name that has come up has been that of former Congressman Fred Upton. He is a Republican congressman from the state of Michigan. He just left at the end of last year. He decided not to run for re-election. He was, however, one of those 10 members of Congress that did vote to impeach Donald Trump after the January 6th insurrection. His name has been floated as a possible candidate, someone that maybe, just maybe, Democrats and Republicans could actually support. And so right now what we're seeing is there is some whispers of Democrats who are willing to actually get behind the candidacy of anyone. But right now, that is not the actual policy of the entire caucus of the Democratic Party. And so right now, what we do know is the leadership of Democrats is they are going to allow Republicans to continue to allow this to play out. And right now, they are not prepared to offer any concessions whatsoever. So while this is certainly embarrassing for Republicans, it is certainly seen as a black eye for the United States, particularly when the rest of the world is watching. And that is something that President Biden is acutely aware of, because we know over his 40 years in Washington, he has been around the globe, first as a chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also as vice president, now as president. He is acutely attuned to what the world is thinking when they see this, particularly coming off of that U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit just a few weeks ago. And of course, we know he will be traveling to the border and meeting in Mexico next week with other world leaders. So this is something that he has to be thinking about, particularly as he tries to push U.S. policy around the world.
Yeah, Eric, thanks so very much for that. But very quickly, why doesn't Kevin McCarthy simply give up? Is there any such hope he might throw in the towel?
Look, right now, Kevin McCarthy has been dug in just as these other 20 Republicans have been dug in that they don't want him. And so what we are seeing now is a game of chicken. The question is, who is going to blink first? Depending on how much longer this goes on, that is certainly something that will be an option. In fact, we are told that even many of those surrounding Kevin McCarthy believe that it might come a time when he will have to give it up. But right now, what we are seeing, Christian, is that Republicans, at least those that do not want Kevin McCarthy, there is no alternative that it could actually get to 218 votes. And in fact, we don't even know if there's anyone outside of Kevin McCarthy who can get to 200 votes. So right now, all they have is Kevin McCarthy, and Kevin McCarthy also recognizes that, and he's going to play this out for as long as he can.
It's a real hell of a time for Kevin McCarthy, but I'm sure a lot of politicking will still be ongoing. Thanks so very much, Eric Ham, Arise News U.S. correspondent in Washington.